Hi, a couple of things about Combat Pilot Carrier Qualification Patreon test that we have uploaded, version 300. The first one is that some of the controls, those that do not go from, say, left, right, -1 to 1. So, for example, the ailerons and the elevators go from 1, like -1 to 1, as in elevator up, elevator down. But some other controls go from 0 to 1, like, for example, the brakes and the throttle. Those controls, if you click on axes, you will need to hit on normalize. Otherwise, only one half of your throttle um, track will work. So those controls need to be normalized, and then there's also an invert button. The input panel screen is going to be changed, so this is just temporary for now. We also plan to add default key bindings for and axis bindings for most of the commercially available joysticks, but unfortunately, that is not yet the case. Moreover, if you are using TrackIR, you must update the games list to be able to recognize Combat Pilot when you boot up the game. Now then, onto the actual flight. Currently, we are developing our own physics engine, and this one here is our sort of prototyped one that we've been using until now. It contains most of the things that you would expect from a physics engine, such as the flight modeling and the engine modeling. It doesn't have any damage modeling. If you crash at really high speeds, you're just going to be like bouncing off, or the game's going to sort of freeze. So forgive us, but we haven't gone there yet. When it comes to the startup procedure, the requirements are the same for both aircraft. You need to have your mixture on sort of maximum richness. Recommend to have your governor up to speed and the throttle between 20 and 50%, so to speak. That represents the usual couple or 1 inch of throttle that you need to give the engine the right juice to start up properly in cold conditions. We will obviously develop this feature further later. Then you have to switch the magnetos to 1+2, which control the sparks of the engine. By default, there's no magnetos on. And make sure that you have the fuel selected. In both aircraft, you will start already with an appropriate fuel tank selected by default, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you did change your fuel selector, make sure that it's not on the off position, otherwise the engine won't start. If the engine does not start, it'll tell you why on the left, so you can always fix it. With the A6M0, one of the things that you need to watch out for is the flap and landing gear situation. Oh, I'm just gonna switch down the engine to help to make sure my voice doesn't get drowned. Just reduce the mixture to kill the engine. The engine will kill itself if you get rid of the fuel flow by reducing the mixture. You can also kill it by changing the magnetos or killing the fuel tank. On the A6M0, you have one system actuating both the flaps and the landing gear. So by default, the selectors are on neutral, which means that you can operate either of them. But if you, for example, have the landing gear operating or the flaps retracting, which they currently are, and you leave that flap selector on the up position, you will not be able to operate the landing gear. You will have to move the flaps to the neutral position and then be able to operate one of your different systems. This is the way that the airplane operated in real life, and despite us being in a very early stage, we've already started to dot in some of those systems. About the Wildcat, the Wildcat has other peculiar subsystems. One of the main ones is that the landing gear is manually cranked. Um, There is a debate as to whether you should be able to actuate other controls or not while you are cranking the landing gear, because theoretically one of your hands is going to be permanently taken by the action of operating the landing gear during the time that it's being retracted or deployed. We haven't done anything with that. We may do in the future. We will see. On the Wildcat, you have a second stage supercharger. The second stage supercharger is not the only one. You also have the main stage, so to speak. You should activate the second stage supercharger when you are around 2,500 feet, and you have two positions for that. You have the low and the high range position. If it's on neutral, it means that the supercharger, the second stage, is not engaged. It's basically like having it off. That's all the clarifications that I wanted to do at this point. Thank you, and have fun flying.